What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Must start and avoid running backs for week 8. I'll be taking a look at every single game this week, going over the backfield situation for each team. If I don't answer your exact question in this video, you can see my rankings at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Alright, the video goes up on Friday, so Washington has already played Minnesota, and there are two teams on bye, the Ravens and the Cowboys. So no Ingram, no Zeke, but everyone else you can still start. So we'll start things off with Seattle at Atlanta, and the Seahawks are currently 3.5-point road favorites, and the game currently has a 54-point total, the highest of the week. For Seattle, start Chris Carson. He's a top 5 running back play this week, and the matchup is as easy as they come. Plus, there will be plenty of scoring opportunities. For Atlanta, Ito Smith has a concussion, so he will not be playing this week. Don't look too much into the box score from last week's game. Freeman got ejected for almost touching Aaron Donald, so he missed half of the game. Freeman this week is a high-end running back 2 option. He should see a lot of work both on the ground and through the air with a pretty good shot at scoring a touchdown. Wouldn't really look at any of the backup options for either team in this one. Bucs at Titans is the next game, and the Titans are currently 2.5-point home favorites, and the game has a relatively high 46-point total. My model doesn't love the game as much, has the total projected at 44 points. It thinks the game's closer to a pick'em, although the game could absolutely be higher scoring if the Titans find success passing the ball. On the Bucs side, they don't really have a running back that you can trust in a difficult matchup. On the Titans, the Bucs are right up there with the Eagles and the Patriots for the most difficult run defense matchups. So Derrick Henry is a very low-end running back 2 this week. Since he has the talent to take it to the house any play, you can still play him. But realistically, he could get you like 3 points in the spot. So if you have better options, consider using them. Cardinals at Saints is next, and the Saints are currently 10-point home favorites with the over-under at 49.5, so another big total game. This one has a lot of question marks. We'll start with the Cardinals. David Johnson is questionable as I'm recording this, and it's worth noting they signed multiple running backs this week. So if he's active, we still need to get confirmation that he's actually going to get touches before putting him into lineups. The signings don't bode well for his chances of not only having a large role, but also even just playing this week. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's ruled out. If he is ruled out, then Chase Edmonds becomes a really nice high upside running back 2 option. Not as great of a matchup as it was last week, but still not one that we're terrified of. They've been trying to get him more involved even when David Johnson was healthy, and we saw his upside last week. Even if David Johnson's out, you're not starting any of the other additional running backs that they signed. For the Saints, we have another injury situation. We'll have to see how much Alvin Kamara practices on Friday. It's going to be tough to trust him if he plays, a very similar situation to David Johnson last week. But I'll just adjust my rankings to reflect what beat writers seem to be saying on Saturday and on Sunday. If he's ruled out, which is still a possibility, then Murray becomes a lock and load play yet again this week. He'd be a low-end 1 to a high-end running back 2, given the matchup, the spread, and the implied total for the Saints. Bengals at Rams is next, and the Rams are 13-point home favorites, although no one's really home because this game is in London. The game also has a pretty high 48.5-point total. For the Bengals, they continue to roll out just an embarrassing game plan that doesn't really utilize their best player right now. It's very possible that they're trying to lose, and if so, they're doing a fantastic job at it. Mixon cannot be trusted as anything more than a low-end flex option in this game, and I'd honestly try and find a better option. For the Rams, this is the single best matchup you can ask for. Most people will think that the Rams can just destroy the Bengals in the passing game, but that's not how teams have been beating the Bengals. They face the highest opponent run play percentage, and they've been just gashed for the league's most yards per carry and the most runs of 20 plus yards by a mile. If you own Gurley and he doesn't suffer any sort of setback in practice this week, then you are starting him. As for Brown, he looks unlikely to play, but they travel to London on Friday, so it's possible you already know his status when this video comes out. Assuming that he's out, Henderson will be a viable flex play. I'd be surprised if they give Gurley any more than 20 touches in an easy game to win. So far this season, he has touch counts of 15, 19, 14, 12, 18, and 19. So it's not much of a stretch to think they're capping his touches at 20. That likely leaves around 15 touches for his backup. So if Brown misses, then Henderson should see double-digit touches in the best possible matchup for an explosive running back. So we'll just have to wait and see what Brown's status is. But again, they travel to London on Friday, so if he's not on the plane, then he's probably not playing. Jets at Jaguars is the next game, and the Jaguars are 6-point home favorites, and the game has a pretty low 41-point over-under. On the Jets side, you got to start Le'Veon Bell every week. The Jaguars aren't the same defense that we've feared over the past few years, and they've actually been a below-average run defense, allowing 4.87 yards per carry to running backs. Bell's issue is that his offensive line is really bad, so even in a good matchup, they don't really help him all that much. But he's still like a mid to low end running back one in any format just because of how much he'll be on the field. For the Jaguars, the Jets have a very above average run defense, but Fournette is just getting enough volume to be a must start in any matchup. He ranks first in carries, fifth in targets amongst running backs, so I don't really care who he plays. You got to start him, and then none of the running backs for the backups for these two are worth starting. Eagles at Bills, and the 5-1 Bills are actually 1.5-point home favorites against the Eagles. Didn't think that would happen when the season started. And the over-under is relatively low at 43 points for the Eagles. They're down to a two-man committee between Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders, and for the first time all season, the committee has flipped. Last week, Jordan Howard was in on 38% of snaps, while Sanders played on 54%. It was Sanders' first time playing more than half the snaps, although he didn't really get that much work, just 6 carries and 3 receptions. The Bills are much better against the pass than they are the rush. So how's this split going to look this week? Could be really important to decipher that. Here's an interesting thought from JM over at the 1 week season. The Bills are an elite defense. We know this. And while they're worse against the ground, they've still given up the 12th lowest yards per carry, so they're not bad against running backs. However, they rank first in adjusted line yards over the center and the guard. So when you run it up the middle, they're very, very good at stopping that. But they're attackable on the outside, on outside runs, outside of the tackle and outside of the guards. 60% of Jordan Howard's carries have come over the center and over the guard. So those runs over the middle, whereas just 20% of Miles Sanders' carries have come in that area. So it would make a lot of sense for the Eagles to feature Miles Sanders in this game over Jordan Howard. Not only on the outside runs, but also in the receiving game. Ultimately, we can't know for sure. We can just guess what they should be doing, but it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. I don't see how you could feel good about starting Jordan Howard, but you could use Miles Sanders as a lower end flex play, but still knowing he got 9 touches last week, and this is a really tough matchup. For the Bills, this is a bottom 3 matchup for a running back. I mean, you could argue that there are a few teams that are more difficult, but the Eagles are exceptional at stopping running back production. However, they're really bad against the pass, so I expect the Bills to throw the ball a ton in this one, and that would benefit Singletary over Gore. I would not start Gore in any league size, but Singletary could be used as a flex in 12-team leagues. although I'd probably still prefer it if you had a better option. Chargers at Bears is next, and the Bears are somehow 4-point home favorites, and the over-under is at just 40, so it should be a very low-scoring game for the Chargers. Even though the Bears got destroyed by the Saints, they're still a good defense, especially at home. It's worth noting that they're much closer to league average than most people will think, but I don't expect the Chargers to all of a sudden find success on the ground in a road game with the Bears, so I still don't think they're going to be that great, even if the Bears aren't as good as they used to be. Eckler and Gordon are both viable flex plays this week, with my preference actually being Eckler, given his upside in the receiving game and just how bad Melvin Gordon has looked since returning. Both of them also were better in full PPR than they are in half point and standard. For the Bears, the offense has looked pathetic at this point, with Allen Robinson being the lone bright spot on this team. Trubisky honestly just looks so bad that they just can't sustain any drives. However, the Chargers defense is fairly mediocre, and if Hayward can shut down or at least slow down Allen Robinson, they could lean on the ground game, especially after comments came out about how embarrassing their 7 total rush attempts were last week. David Montgomery is the only guy you can really start in this backfield, and while I think it's possible they lean heavily on him in this one, he's still more of a flex play than anything else at this point. Next, we have Giants at Lions, and the Lions are currently 6.5-point home favorites, and the game has a pretty low 41-point total. For the Giants, always start Saquon. For the Lions, at this point, they already have their game plan made for this week. So even if they add someone or they trade for someone, this week's game plan is set. So we should assume that even if they bring someone in, they're not going to have much of a role. Ty Johnson is the preferred piece on the Lions. He outsnapped McKissick 49-16, and we know McKissick really isn't all that good. Although you gotta wonder, will Patricia try and outsmart himself like he usually does? I'd be surprised if the snaps flip into McKissick's favor, because again, he's not all that good. And I'm also not scared about Paul Perkins. So Ty Johnson should get around 15 to 18 touches, which makes him a running back 2 in a matchup against a Giants team that ranks well below average in basically every defensive category and just got absolutely annihilated by Chase Edmonds last week. Raiders at Texans is next, and the Texans are 6.5-point home favorites, and this is the second highest total game on the weekend with 51.5 projected points scored. For the Raiders, if Josh Jacobs were fully healthy, then I'd call him a must start in this game. However, he's missed back-to-back practices now with the shoulder, and you gotta make sure he's out there on Friday before even considering putting him in your lineup. If he misses another practice, then his chance of playing takes a big hit, and this is a 425 game. So if he turns into a game time decision, that's very risky putting him in your lineup. If he does practice on Friday, it's going to give us a little bit more confidence in his ability to play. If he's out, then you can look to DeAndre Washington as a flex play, but it would be a low-end flex play with very low upside. On the Texans side, the Raiders have a much better run defense than most people will think. So with Hyde seeing little to no passing game work, he's a touchdown-dependent flex play and one that I don't really want to start. No other running back on the Texans is getting enough volume to be viable. Outside of, I'll say, 16-team leagues, maybe you could take a look at Duke Johnson. Next game, Panthers at 49ers, and the 49ers are 6-point home favorites, and the over-under is pretty low at 42 points. For the Panthers, start Christian McCaffrey as always, but temper expectations whenever you have a player facing the 49ers, especially on the road. On the 49ers side, the Panthers are much stronger against the pass than they are the run, and the 49ers like to run the ball, so it's not a problem for them. Coleman is the lead back and the top red zone option, getting 8 green zone touches to Breida's 1. So Coleman makes for a solid running back 2 option with a good amount of touchdown upside, and Breida is more of a flex play because it's far less likely that he scores. Browns at Patriots is the next game, and the Patriots opened as 10-point home favorites, but that was quickly bet up to 13 points, and the over-under is currently sitting at 46, which is about average, although it's kind of high given that the Patriots have allowed 7 points per game against them. On the Browns, you have to start Chubb in any matchup. Just obviously temper expectations. The Patriots have allowed the second fewest yards per carry in the league, and they've only allowed 7 points per game scored against them. On the Patriots side, the Browns are a below average run defense, and they're supposed to win by nearly 2 touchdowns. So a lot is going to depend on the health of Rex Burkhead, but Sony Michel can be considered a touchdown-dependent running back 2, while White is a more stable running back 2 since he's had between 12 and 14 PPR points in every single game this season. If Rex Burkhead returns, I'd need a beat writer to tell me he's 100% good to go before I'd even consider starting him, and I doubt you're in a situation where you need to start Rex Burkhead. So not starting him unless we hear word that he's going to be featured, which we will not hear. Broncos at Colts is the next game, and the Colts are currently 5.5-point home favorites, and the over-under is 43.5. The Broncos are underdogs, and the Colts have a strong run defense now that Darius Leonard has returned. Royce Freeman has actually outsnapped Phillip Lindsay in each of the past 4 weeks, and has actually out-targeted him 18-9 over that stretch as well. Lindsay has 12 green zone touches to Freeman's 6, but the gap between Freeman and Lindsay doesn't seem to be there anymore. Both should be considered low-end running back 2 options, given that they're still going to receive a good amount of volume. For the Colts, we're always starting Mac when he's healthy. Just temper expectations in this matchup. I know he's a home favorite, but the Broncos have been a lot better against running backs as of late. The Sunday night matchup will be the Packers at the Chiefs, and the Packers opened as 5.5-point road favorites, but that's been bet down to just 3.5 points, with the over-under rising to 48. For the Packers, the Chiefs are a plus matchup. They rank 29th in both rush defense DVOA and yards per carry allowed to running backs, so you're starting Aaron Jones as usual. Although, I'll say Jamal Williams could be used as a flex play. He's getting 40 to 50% of the snaps, and he is still used near the goal line. For Kansas City, the Packers are most attackable on the ground, and with Mahomes out, I expect them to try and lean on the ground game a little bit more than they usually do. It's worth noting that McCoy has 11 green zone touches on the season, with Kelsey having the second most on the team with just 6. So McCoy has the best chance of scoring on the team, and I'd view him and Williams both as flex viable plays, with McCoy being the better option, but both being viable. The final game of the week is Monday Night Football, and it'll be the Dolphins traveling to Heinz Field to take on the Steelers. The Steelers are coming off bye and have the Monday night game, so they've had plenty of time to prepare to play the worst team in the league, and that's why they're 2 touchdown home favorites. The Dolphins are projected to score about 14 points. So when you look at running backs on a team with that low of a total, playing a pretty solid defense on the road, and they're splitting time, you really just can't start any of their running backs. I guess you can start Walton in a deeper format, or if you're just super desperate, you're like, Nick, I only need 8 points. All right, don't expect more than 8. Because they're only going to score 14, which means Vegas is only expecting 1 touchdown. So I can see starting Walton if you think he scores, you think he gets around 10, 12, 13 carries, but it's a pretty thin play. For the Steelers, don't look too much into the split last time they played. Connor left the game with an injury, but he was the feature back before that. So assuming he's good to go, then he's a mid-range running back 1 this week, with Snell only being viable in deeper formats if you think the Steelers just dominate and it's a blowout in the second half, which is certainly possible. If we do get word that Connor will be limited, then we need to figure out how limited, and I'll adjust the rankings accordingly. So that's everything you should need answered at the running back position for week 8. If you have more questions that I did not answer in this video, then just look at my rankings at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But that's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? And if you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.